awesome.
Let me check. Okay, hi everyone. We are very glad to be able to interview our amazing speaker, Kaz or Matt, from the project Caldera, and he's a co-founder and CEO over here. And our series, the Web3 Builder series, that we wanted to bring a lot of amazing Web3 builders that we are all familiar with within our mental ecosystem, right? So today we're so glad to invite Katz joining us as one of our interviewee over here to introduce yourself and your project to us. We have also collected a lot of great questions from our community members and can't wait to ask you. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Katz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Caldera. Myself personally, I got into this role via an engineering background, worked as an engineer all over the Web2 and Web3 space prior to starting the company. What Caldera does is we help people launch customizable, dedicated L2 and L3 blockchains for, typically some combination of like speed, sovereignty, and scale. So right now we're working with close to 100 teams across testnets and mainnets, all of which, are developing their own custom blockchains with Caldera.
Wow, that is just amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for letting us know about that. Over 100 projects. That's a lot. And of course, one of our audience that they ask, can you, let us know what made you wanted to enter the Web3 space and how was the journey led with building the Caldera project to begin with? Thank you.
Yeah, so I technically entered the Web3 space when I was like 12 years old, back in like, 2012, 2013 era. And like back then, I think it was just like I spent a lot of time on like internet forums and somehow just fell into the rabbit hole of like Bitcoin. At the time, like there was no crypto Twitter, there was like bitcointalk.com and like Bitcoin on Reddit. And so like just got really into that, both from like a kind of technical perspective, but also like philosophical perspective of like, self-sovereignty, like a little bit of kind of libertarianism, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I got my start, but I really did start in earnest building in Web3, like once I got to college, went to Stanford for undergrad, was able to study under some great professors who were very active in the space, made a lot of connections, people building some really cool things on like on-chain gaming, on-chain social, etc. And then from working with all of those builders, realized that the thing the space desperately needed was scale. And so that is what ultimately inspired us to like take the full leap, work full time in the industry, and start building Caldera.
Nice. And do you mind to let us know what project, what subject did you study? Also related to engineering or computer science?
Yeah, I studied computer science with a focus on systems. So a mix of like distributed systems, operating systems, and like blockchain and cryptography.
That is awesome. Yeah, the reason I asked is because my little brother also applying for some CS programs around across North America, and Stanford is definitely one of the universities he really want to go into. So, since you have shared us about your journey, right, to begin, starting from 12 years old. That was super, super young. Can you share some challenges or other like memorable moments that you have faced while building the project there along the way? Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as with any startup, like the biggest challenge is finding quote unquote product market fit, right? And I think in crypto that can often look different than what it looks like in traditional startups, but it still is similar in like you kind of know when things are working, right? And you know when things really aren't working. And I think both to our credit and a little bit to our detriment, we were quite early to the idea of like rollups as a service. We founded the company in March 2022. And that was good because it gave us like quite some time to just kind of like find our footing as entrepreneurs and, you know, be heads down building, et cetera. But that was also a very painful time because, you know, we thought we would build a product, there would be like good early demand right from the moment we built it. And then we would just be kind of off to the races. But it didn't play out like that. Like we actually were just a little bit too early to the idea, I would say. So, you know, we spent our first like 4 to 6 months, I think, with like no sales after the product was built, just because there was very little market demand for this. And then like very shortly after, as the modular thesis started to play out and people really understood what you could do with roll-ups, like that's when things actually started to really pick up. And so just like the challenge of getting through that, maintaining conviction, you know, was quite difficult. And then, yeah, the only other thing I'll mention, and this is the truth with like, you know, I think every entrepreneur is just like hiring great talent is always hard. We've got an amazing team now, 25 like really awesome people. But it takes a while to like build a great team. And you make a lot of mistakes as well as a first-time entrepreneur. So a lot of kind of like general challenges there. But you know, that overcoming that is just more of like a slog, right? Maintaining kind of true to your values and interviewing a bunch of people and sourcing the right people, you know, that sort of thing.
Right. Oh my goodness, finding a strong team, right? And also suitable team to work together with definitely is not easy. And you mentioned that you graduated from Stanford, which is definitely very, very great school, right? And well, from the world setting. And so we have an audience asking, do you think that your Stanford degree helped you source funds from VCs? And because they have heard about this kind of things, right? And they're not sure if it's really true. And so they're just curious and wanted to ask you, are Ivy League degrees important in Web? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I mean this is like one of those things where it's actually really hard to comment on when like you have it. So I actually didn't graduate. I dropped out, which is almost even
normal,
better.
right? Which is normal for startups or founders. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. And so I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. It helps a lot because yeah, like you kind of get put into that category of people that you know are like high potential people who you know went to
Smart.
Stanford. Yes, yeah, theoretically. But you know, I actually think in many respects, like you know, Stanford is kind of a unique case where I found, you know, a lot of the greatest benefits I've gotten from gone to Stanford are like legitimately just the personal connections I made there rather than like the degree or the name on my resume. So like, you know, a lot of our earliest backers were people who were like people that I had connections to via other people at Stanford. And so I think it made a huge difference there. All that said, like I found, you know, Web3 to be very egalitarian, at least, you know, people strive to be. So there are like a lot of founders in the space with like, you know, who went to state schools or didn't go to any school. And there's of course a really diverse array of backgrounds as well. And obviously not everyone is even from the States. And so they're, you know, I think investors in this space, they know how to identify like, you know, interesting founders, interesting projects without like needing to rely too much on like the traditional like status symbols of degrees.
I see. Thank you so much for your very honest response to this question. I think this is a very interesting one because, well, today we're also going to give a baby Menta NFT airdrop to one of the best questions. That's why we got a lot of questions. I didn't put up them here, otherwise our interview will be like 2 hours. So we just picked several of them in advance. But thank you so much for answering those. So, and there's another one which is also a bit tough question, I think, because okay, here we go. The question is, since many Web3 projects eventually disappear or have very short lifespans, the audience want to ask, what motivates you wanted to build a Web3 startup, even though you know there will be a lot of challenges, right?
Yeah, I think for us, it was the opportunity to really build something that we felt was like fundamental in this space. Like I think infra often gets a bad rap, right? For good reasons sometimes in Web3, because a lot of people build infra that isn't necessary. But we believed in the roll-up thesis really early on, and then the modular thesis more broadly. And we felt like if we build Caldera and we end up being right, like there's a good shot that a decade from now, like we're powering like 99% of the world's block space, and like we're the ones that are like really helping drive mainstream adoption of Web3 and really helping build out like the new internet. And those opportunities don't come around very often, I would say. So yeah, like we when we were ideating, we knew we wanted to build in crypto. We had like a big list of ideas, and we basically optimized for what we thought like would be the biggest, not the one that had the highest chance of success. There's a lot of like kind of short-term things that we could have done that I think might have ultimately like led to a faster outcome. But we're in it for the long haul, and we're in it to build something like as big as we can.
Right, just like we have seen a lot of other startups, right? They are going to change their direction when the overall narratives changes. For example, in last cycle, maybe everyone wanted to do metaverse or DAOs, right? Who still talk about those right now? None exists, right? And or GameFi, right? And SocialFi, and this cycle a lot of AI meme tokens. So wow, it's just amazing, and to see that how Katz lead the Caldera team and focus on this track, right? And also think about after 10 years, the kind of development, which is amazing. Schedule another XP session to focus on your project development, and feel free to invite other team members to join our next discussion as well. So here comes back our builders interview to Katz, the founder and CEO at Caldera. And another question from our committee member is, they wanted to know, what do you think are the most important features a Web3 project must have to succeed in today's market? As we know, what's today's market condition? It's quite bumpy, right? We thought we are in bull market, but it's kind of like it's Bitcoin's bull market, and we still need a lot more new users. But in this cycle, I don't really see a lot of new user adoption or mass adoption, except the meme token area. So what do you think are the features that Caldera or other Web3 projects need to have in order to be successful in Web3?
Yeah, I think at a baseline, like real usage is important. At least to succeed in the long term in today's market, it does feel like people in this space are becoming a lot more sophisticated with how they think about projects. People aren't willing to underwrite potential, right? Like infinitely. Like people actually want results. People look at user numbers. People look at active addresses, that sort of thing. And I think we will see, a quote unquote kind of maybe flight to quality, where people really start thinking about which projects are sustainable, which projects are doing something real, and which ones are kind of, all hype and no substance.
Right.
I think, that at a baseline is important. So, people talk about like apps versus infrastructure. I don't necessarily think that's like the core paradigm here, right? Or apps versus infrastructure versus meme coins. It's going to be like, who is like solving a real problem, whether that's an app or whether that's infrastructure, who has like real revenue streams that are defensible and growing, and like who's building something that like is actually just being used. So broadly, those are my thoughts. I think you also mentioned narratives. It feels to me that just the narratives are rotating much more quickly these days. Like, we pivoted from like modular to AI to meme coins to deepen. This is all happening so fast. Where I don't think projects nowadays, at least most projects, and all the narratives are so different. It's very hard to pivot successfully into each narrative. So I think we will see a lot more projects try to like create their own narrative. I actually take a lot of inspiration, I think, from Story Protocol, who did this very well, I would say. But no one was talking about IP on blockchain, right? Some people were. It was always like a persistent kind of theme in the space, but no one treated that like a high value category until they basically kind of memed it into existence in a good way. Now they kind of own that narrative all to themselves because it was homegrown. They didn't wait for the narrative wins to just kind of come to them or get lucky. And so I think for us, like when we think about our strategy and how we communicate, like it's very much the same thing. Like we want to like own the story rather than just kind of be like a bit player in the broader story of the market.
Wow. Nice. Thank you so much, Katz, for letting us know about that. So right here, we have a live question from our Binance Live audience, because after they heard about you talking about your journey and your educational background, they're so curious, because people thought normally if someone is from like CS, programs or those kind of like more techie side, they might not be a good marketing person. But Katz, you're different. So what made you become the you today, that coding, technical things, and you can also be a very good marketing guy?
Yeah, well, I appreciate people thinking that. I think there's nothing in particular. I from a very young age have actually been quite interested in politics. And so I've spent a lot of free time even just like studying the stories behind like famous political campaigns. I'm a dual Canadian and American citizen, so I study American politics. I follow Canadian politics as well. I think America has generally better speakers than Canada, but like learning more about political campaigns, all of those, like it's about messaging, it's about communication, it's about like staying on brand. It's about kind of navigating a competitive dynamic on like the biggest stage possible. I think from following all of those things and studying them, I think there have been like a lot of lessons that have carried over. But broadly, like I'm a little kind of ashamed to admit it, but like if people remember the meme of like shape rotators versus like word cells, like maybe from like a year ago, like I'm a word cell. Like I have an engineering background. I really like coding. I find coding very similar to writing. But my grades and my scores on like history and English and everything, even on like the ACT, right, and the SAT, like were like a little bit higher than my math scores. So I've always been like a little bit leaning towards like communications and like being more well-rounded rather than just like pure math and engineering.
Interesting. Nice. And no wonder you could be admitted to Stanford. Oh my goodness. Definitely a genius. Thank you so much. So, well, here comes our very last question, because if you have 10 seconds to look at the Baby Manta X profile, and can you share your very first impression to our audience? Thank you.
Yeah, I have seen it before, but I'm opening it up again now. Genuinely, I think like our team is like we really like Baby Manta. Like I think it's actually one of the best examples of like a mascot in the space. It like and I have the internal Slack conversations to prove this, so I'm not just saying this to say it. But like it's very recognizable. It's the only mascot I've taken a photo with at an ETH conference. And it makes a lot of sense for the project. Like, we have a mascot. It's actually like a little bunny, right? But I would say it makes a little bit less sense than like the baby manta. Everyone knows that's Manta Network. It wears the shirt. It makes like it's great. I'm a huge fan.
Nice. Thank you so much, Katz. And do you mind to share the picture like you took with Baby Manta in our group chat? And if you don't mind, can we post it on Baby Manta's X handle as well?
Yes. Yeah. I'll. It's not a great photo, but I do have it. It was from Dev Connect in Thailand, so I'll forward it to you later.
Well, if you wanted to Photoshop a bit, we don't mind. That's okay. We can make it like a GQ magazine. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Katz, for spending time with us. Much appreciated. And today's session also being streaming on Binance Life, and we're being featured on the front page of Binance Life as well. I will share the screenshot with you later in our group chat. And let's schedule another session to focus on the project Caldera, because we also want to learn about more, tech part or marketing side and different strategies about it and how you grow this project. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great rest of the day. Okay, I'm going to disconnect us. Okay, dokie, everyone. This is another amazing interview with a builder in the Web3 space. Web3 builder interview series. And friends, let us know what other builders like you would like to see that they could, get interviewed by our, Baby Manta, because Baby Manta is learning, right? So we need to interview a lot of amazing Web3 builders that Baby Manta could grow together with. Send us your suggestions and we're going to reach out them for you. Thank you. See you next time.